recording. I am here in Middleton in a nice little secluded nature spot not too far off of a cafe, the Common Ground Cafe, which is an amazing cafe here in Middleton, with my good friend Durango, who I've interviewed several times, who has lived in Florida. How many years did you live in Florida?
Oh, at least I went to elementary school, high school, middle school. I was probably in Florida for a good 10, 12 years. And I sporadically throughout, my life, I went back. I've been through 5 hurricanes. I was through Hurricane Donna in the 60s, where you didn't have TV or internet, and it hit you like Key Largo, the movie with Humphrey Bogart. There was no warning. I remember putting up hurricane shutters during the storm with my own man. We lived in this little wood house out in Alapata, which is the Seminole name for alligator, which is now Little Haiti, in his old wood house. And I woke up the next morning with this tree on the roof and a stop sign in the front yard. So I thought hurricanes are like the coolest thing ever. And they're very important for nature because they recycle all the coral. They're not so good for humans, but they recycle the coral, the dead palm trees. They're a big recycling agent. But the important question for the day is, will the hurricane blow Mar-a-Lago out to sea? That's the question that we're considering. And if so, will it be floating in the Bahamas, or will it go under like Atlantis? Or what would happen if Mar-a-Lago was blown out to sea by the hurricane? That's the question of the day.
What if Mar-a-Lago goes under the sea and through a portal back to Atlantis?
Into time.
Into Atlantis.
What if the hurricane blows Mar-a-Lago back through a time portal to where Donald Trump is actually polishing a shoe shine boy in Memphis, Tennessee? We have to ponder these things. You can't just assume anything with space-time being what it is.
Well, what are the dangers of Florida? You've got hurricanes. You've also got, Al Gore said many years ago, that Florida would be submerged in water from the ice caps melting.
Well, true. I mean, that's actually experientially true. I was one of the reasons I came up here to Wisconsin. When I was a kid, I'd go to the beach in Miami, and there was a good almost probably half a football field, 50 yards of sand before you get to the water from the beach. And you go back now, maybe there's 20 some yards of sand. And if you go to certain places, there's maybe 5 yards of sand. And I was sitting on a wall in Hollywood, Florida before I came up here, and it was this guy driving by in a little Bobcat, one of those machines. And I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" He said, "Oh, we're filling in the sand." I almost burst out laughing. It was literally, the ocean was literally like 5 feet away. And this guy's driving on a Bobcat. Talk about futility, trying to replace the sand. So there's no question that the oceans are rising. Now, why, scientifically, that's debatable. But it's a fact that it's happening. So, you can do what you do. But it's more interesting so the dangers of Florida. Well, you have hurricanes, you have quite a few tornadoes, mosquitoes. Now there's a python epidemic in the Everglades. But the biggest problem with the Everglades is developers who want to develop the land. I had a friend named Paul Shakowski, who was a reporter from the Miami Herald, who got fired because he wanted to do an expose on developers buying the Everglades for development and destroying the ecosystem. So he ended up moving to Seattle and became a reporter for the Seattle Post-Intelligencer. So you don't know about these things. But on the good side, they have the hibiscus flowers are really nice, and they have a lot of good things. The oranges are great.
Don't they also have alligators and crocodiles?
Well, no. They have alligators. Crocodiles are not indigenous to Florida.
Okay.
Alligators are not man-eating. In fact, they go out of their way to avoid you. If you torment them and punch them with sticks, they will snap. But you literally have to annoy them beyond repair to get a response. I mean, crocodiles, on the other hand, those are nasty suckers. They're more indigenous to like South America.
Okay.
And but alligators, no, they could care less. You know, they'd rather just like sleep in the sun. Alligators are okay, man. I like alligators. And you got good universities. You got the University of Florida. You got the University of Miami. You got Florida State University. You have FAMU. You have all sorts of great universities. So Florida's not all, you know, hellfire and, you know, brimstone. It's there's some good things going on there, you know.
Now, didn't you also live in the village?
I did. I lived in the village.
When did you move to the village? And to anybody who doesn't know the expression "the village," what is the village?
The village, well, I'm assuming you mean the East Village in New York.
Yes.
I also worked on the Seminole Reservation for a while, the Res, which is sort of a village, the Seminole Village. But most people relate to the village as the bohemian aspects of New York City. The village, yeah, it was a hoot, man.
When did you move there?
I moved there probably, depends how one determines time, probably in the late 1980s, and I lived there for about, I don't know, 7-8 years or something like that. I don't know. That was cool. I liked the village. Lived in Brooklyn, the village. I actually lived in Brooklyn. I go into the village because I couldn't really afford it. I lived in Greenpoint, which is now supposed to be somewhat like bourgeois, sort of swanky. But when I was there, it was pure squalor. It was just like, you know, like on the waterfront with Marlon Brando. It was just desolate, complete deserted squalor, you know, hookers on every corner, you know. It was like, you couldn't believe it was the same world. That, you know, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Last question, and then I think I have to go back to my work.
Okay.
After that, my job.
Yeah,
That job.
Yeah, job.
I love the way George Carlin would say.
Job.
George Carlin would say, "Keep everybody going to their jobs." We were talking about it a little bit the other day. We're probably both under the assumption that Trump will probably get reelected.
I think it's a lock. I think the Democrats and they just continually shoot themselves in the foot.
Yep.
They go out of their way to just like, they just don't get it.
Yeah.
They just shoot themselves in the foot endlessly, perpetually, you know. But it's more complicated than that. It goes back to, I think, the assassination of Kennedy, when they made a major left turn. I don't want to say left turn because then everybody associates that with something political. But it made a major difference in power and what's really going on. I think the assassination of Kennedy was way more profound than people realize, I think, in terms of that.
And as somebody said a couple years ago when I was at a conference, they said that a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Democrats are basically funded by certain industries so that they can't really offer a different flavor than what they've been giving. You think there's truth to that the Democrats can't really do something different since they're...
No, they can't. It's like, because it's like a corrupt poker game. It's like you have to buy into the game. And if you're willing to buy in on that level, you've already sold out to so many people and you're so deep in the game, you can't get out. You can't buy out. And because of the whole thing, to be a legitimate quality, you could be Thomas Jefferson and not have a dime in your pocket, or Thomas Paine, maybe a better example, and, you know, and not have a dime, or Henry David Thoreau. You couldn't qualify for president because you're not going to raise $20 trillion by donations or whatever. And they know if you spend that much money to buy in, you're not going to change anything. So I don't know. I don't know. I still think Ron Paul should be president, but that's just me.
Who do you think? Any idea who you think is going to win the Democratic nomination?
Oh my God, what a nightmare! I think it'll go into absolute chaos in the convention. It'll be a brokered convention. Nobody will get enough votes, and then out of desperation, they will probably run a draft Michelle Obama, who will probably then run second to Trump.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.